Wind Waker HD is a game that did not have a lot of bosses, and the reason for that being is there's just not really a lot of dungeons in the game.
Another factor is that we took Puppet Ganon, who has 3 distinct stages to the fight, and instead of ranking each stage separately, we decided to combine it all into one boss.
I think it's one of those things, like if there's different settings, like in Twilight Princess, we'll divide that up. Or if you have something like Majora's Mask with the 3 different names, we'll divide that up. But to be honest with you, Puppet Ganon always felt like one fight to me.
And we also didn't include Phantom Ganon. Some Zelda fans, I feel like, consider it to be a boss.
I never have.
But honestly, I never have. Yeah, to us, it's more of a mini boss. You beat it, you get the dungeon item, and you eventually go on to face the Helmaroc King, which is the main boss of the dungeon.
Now, the HD remake of this game, is really good for the bosses and also the dungeons. As we said in our dungeon ranking, just some of these bosses, it really made them brighter and just more detailed.
And you think someone like Gohma, or there's the lava, things like that just really stand out. But please keep in mind that these rankings are strictly our opinions.
Yes.
If you disagree with us, feel free to leave your own rankings in the comment section.
If you wait around till the end, you'll see our individual rankings and where we place each of these bosses.
This is our Wind Waker HD boss ranking.
Let's go to the video.
This boss didn't drop all the way to last because we necessarily disliked it. It's just the fact that it didn't fit the Wind Temple at all.
It's got sand. So where did this sand come from? It's just a boss I really didn't expect, but it was a huge looking boss. I did like that aspect of it.
And I did think that the hook shot was implemented well because we use it not only to pull that purple tongue out of his mouth so we can attack him, but we also use it to pull those larvae out of the sand.
Now, one thing I didn't like is we used a DQ leaf throughout the entire dungeon, and while we didn't get in this dungeon, I wish they would have implemented it in this boss fight since we use it so much.
Now, a concept I actually did really enjoy was the added quicksand that pulls you towards his mouth. Every time he comes up, it adds almost a sense of urgency to the fight.
And when he flies down at you, he's got that big old mouth open, and then he goes flying through the sand. I really love that part too. Any boss that has a name Ganon should not look like this.
No.
I mean, those aren't muscles right there. Those are just jelly balls, and it's a really silly looking boss.
Especially for being one of the final bosses in the game. Just having the strings holding him down like it is literally a puppet just looks too goofy.
I mean, the concept's stupid. We should be, we had Puppet Zelda in Twilight Princess, but that kind of like she was possessed.
Exactly.
Where she said this one actually is a puppet with strings. It's just a silly, dumb idea.
Now, there were a few things I liked. I liked that it took on 3 different forms as the
I did like that.
Progressed, even though I really, really hate spiders.
I actually like the music. The music's kind of got that frantic pace to it, so I feel like that adds to the boss fight. It's also always fun using light arrows.
And I like really being able to see the reflection of the spider and also the snake there on the pool of water.
I hate snakes, dude. So whatever. I hate this part. But that tail was actually very difficult to hit during this stage of the boss fight.
Oh, it was. I struggled so bad. I have no idea how to pronounce this guy's name, so I'm not even going to try to. But I will say that this was, I thought, the most colorful and beautiful boss in this game.
And went along well with the Forbidden Woods because, in my opinion, that was the most beautiful dungeon in this game. But I'm really never been a big fan of plant bosses.
Me neither, but again, having a plant boss in the forest dungeon does make sense. But man, just how about the way this room lights up when he falls to the ground and opens up?
It's got a bunch of neon lights kind of in a way, or what's it called? When they illuminate the
phosphorus.
Yes, phosphorus. Yes,
something like that.
But one thing that I didn't like was the middle, the plant in the middle.
Yeah,
it just didn't look menacing or big enough.
I did think it was a pretty cool use of the boomerang though to attack those. I guess they're tentacles or whatever.
Vines.
That's actually a much better word.
Yeah, plants don't really have tentacles. Those are the ocean animals there.
But I like the idea of hitting those to bring him crashing down to the ground.
One thing I've always loved about this boss fight is going around the side of this cave, and then Helmaroc King is there trying to break the walkway. It really just creates an urgent feeling.
Plus you've got the whole room is flooding below you. The walkway is crumbling out right from underneath you.
I love watching it fall down too, right there into the water.
And how about it's a outside boss fight, which we always love. You got the stars, you got the moon, and these spotlights from the Forsaken Fortress shining everywhere.
And then Howie not mentioned it yet, but the Skull Hammer, just a very fun weapon in the game. And just when he gets his beak stuck in the ground, first of all, it's a funny visual, but it's always fun just smashing his face in.
And I just really love the way this guy looks. It's like he's a dark colored boss, but then he's got those bright neon tail feathers that really add some pop to him.
And the fight really reminded me a lot of the Rock fight in Twilight Princess, which we're big fans of. And then also, he just had a lot of variety of attacks.
He really did.
Different ways that he tried to come at you. And it's just fun, like, countering all those attacks.
Now, we're usually not very high on the first boss of a game, and we're really usually not very high on bosses with Gohma in the name, but this one was a big exception for us.
And this was just a huge boss, especially for the first fight. And I just love the idea or the concept of using the dragon's tail and how he actually like comes down like a rock does, and that's how you hurt Gohma.
And plus the look on the dragon's face when you pull his tail, and he looks back behind him, he's like,
that'd be my reaction too if that happened to me.
And then the visual when we're swinging from that tail, you've got the lava down below, this giant Gohma down there. It just looked really cool.
You know, to be honest with you, for me, that's why this boss jumped so high for me, was the whole swinging back and forth, like you said, just like getting those different angles and like being able to fly over top of a boss. It's not an angle like we usually got in a boss fight.
Plus, it was just a really good use for the grappling hook, which as a weapon, I'm not a big fan of, but using it to grab that tail and to swing across the platform was really cool.
And this boss just looked awesome in the HD version with just all the glowing orange around it. Now, some of you, or many of you, might know that Red and I are not huge fans of the Earth Temple.
Yeah, that's being kind.
Yeah, to be honest with you, we hate it. But I actually did really like this boss. I felt like it brought on the color that we actually needed in the dungeon.
Along with the color, it also gave us a little bit of humor with the way the pose reacted when we first came in. And then even the theme itself feels so much more lighthearted than the rest of this dark dungeon.
I just love taking a big creature and picking him up. Now, I don't know how Link has that big of muscles.
He's been hitting the gym.
But anyways, taking him, throwing him, and like rolling him into the spikes was just very fun.
And the way he bounces up and comes down and explodes into like the dozen or however many little pose is a really cool visual.
I like as we got more and more pose. Well, actually, we started out with a lot of pose, but like we progressed through the pose, we saw like how much closer we were getting to the end of the boss fight.
And I also really like how the mirror shield was used in this fight, like to reflect the beams coming down from the ceiling to stun his big form, so that we could pick him up and launch him into the pillars. It was nice to have a boss that instead of being like your traditional boss was just meant to be a challenge from the gods, and that's what Gohdan was.
I just like the neon lights that we get. It seems like we're in a club or something like that, you know.
And I know you mentioned that you're not a huge fan of the theme, but
no, I'm not.
I actually really think like the almost techno-sounding theme matches those lights.
It kind of goes along with it being a challenge, I think, more than it does like being an enemy. You don't have that like that scary enemy sound that you get with a lot of boss fights.
And also, I liked how we get to use two different items in this fight. Like, we use the bow to shoot his hands and his eyes, and then how about throwing the bomb in his mouth to blow him up?
You know what I actually liked is that we shot eyes instead of just one eye. Like, you know, we shot numerous things instead of just one big eye in the middle.
And you always got to keep an eye out for those hands, because he's got like 2 or 3 different attacks. Like, he'll come sweeping in from the side or try to pound you from above. It's just, you got to keep an eye out for him.
You know, it's one of those bosses that remind me of Bongo Bongo from Ocarina of Time. I've always been a huge fan of that boss also. Now, this right here is final boss music. This is an awesome final boss setting, and which makes it an awesome final boss.
It really does.
And one thing I've always loved is how the water is constantly coming down around you the entire boss fight.
I think one thing I've always loved is the fact that it is actually a sword fight. Like, you see him draw those 2 swords at the beginning, and you just get pumped up for a real duel.
I like that we're fighting on a platform. Like, we're kind of outside, even though it feels like we're trapped by the water in a way. And even though we don't get close to the edge, you always still kind of have that sense of danger.
I love how much Zelda was involved in this fight. She was assisting us almost the entire time with her light arrows.
Now, I don't know why Ganondorf is wearing so much clothing.
I know.
You think that would really slow him down during the fight.
And how about the idea of using your mirror shield to deflect the light arrows back at Ganondorf? I thought that was a really awesome concept.
And then the final blow in the fight is the best final blow that we've ever gotten in a Zelda game. Just seeing his sword in his head and face is just awesome.
I was very happy with how close our individual rankings were to each other, and we had 2 of them, Helmaroc King and Gohma actually in the exact same spot.
The only big difference that we really had was Gohdan, which was 3 spots apart. I think where we really screwed up on this ranking was making each of these boss fights a minute long.
Yes.
It was really hard to talk about them for that long.
Well, there were also only 8 bosses in this game, which might be the fewest of just about any Zelda game. So we had to pad the length.
It's actually disappointing for this game. Like there should just be more boss fights, I think, throughout the game.
If you click on the red subscribe button, it'll take you to our YouTube channel where you'll see we post Zelda videos frequently.
And you can check out our website at 2guysplayingzelda.com. It's actually something that we're very proud of.
Yes, we are.
We got a lot of great Zelda content there. We're not going to go through all of it. Just go check it out.
And we're also very active on social media, so give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram, and give us a like on Facebook.
If you click the video on the left, you'll be sent to our Wind Waker HD dungeon ranking, and clicking the video on the right will send you to our top 10 Zelda games.
And clicking on either of those videos will send you to a playlist with all our Zelda ranking videos.